Hello, this is Jules. This video is on a slightly more intermediate topic, so in case I mention any terms or concepts that you don't recognize or that you want a refresher on, I'll include a link to the glossary playlist in the description below. I'll also include links to a few other specific videos that I mentioned throughout this video that you can use to get more specifics on these topics and practices. A note on the terms spiritual development and spiritual progression. I tend to use the words development and progression interchangeably. I often tend to use the word progression more when talking about consciousness progression, and development more when talking about spiritual development, but they're basically synonyms in my mind. To be able to talk about what spiritual development is, it first helps to have a model of what's going on with reality. Consciousness is the only thing that really exists. That's absolute truth. Everything else is illusion, including physical reality, subtle reality, causal reality, etc. But there is a hierarchy of illusion. You could say that consciousness is dreaming in layers, sort of like in the movie Inception. Consciousness, or divinity, is dreaming that it is polarized divinity. Polarized divinity is dreaming that it is a causal self. The causal self is dreaming that it is a subtle self, and the subtle self is dreaming that it is living a physical life in a physical body in physical reality. Each successive layer of dream is further and further away from capital R reality or absolute truth. Spiritual development is the process of waking up from the successive layers of dream. First, you wake up from the physical dream and realize that you are not your physical body, that you have a mind or an astral self or a subtle body that is not constrained to your physical body and can actually continue to exist after your physical body dies, and that this subtle self is where your thoughts and memories actually are. You may even discover that this subtle self has its own senses, which I call inner senses. Then, if you continue to spiritually progress, you wake up from the subtle dream and realize that you are not your thoughts or memories of this lifetime, that you have an existence across multiple lifetimes, which is what I term your causal self. You may even discover that this causal self can remember previous lifetimes and/or access realms of reality beyond physical reality. If you keep spiritually progressing, eventually you wake up from the causal dream as well, and you end up in witnessing stage. You discover that your true self is actually pure awareness, that there is only your pure awareness and that which you perceive, and that everything that you had previously thought of as being yourself is actually not really you, but is instead perceived by this pure awareness that you are. There is just you as pure awareness, and other as the form that is being perceived. This is the nature of polarized divinity, self and other, yin and yang, emptiness and form. And then, if you keep going, eventually it all snaps back together and you realize that there is no other. It is all you. There was only ever you, and you have finally awoken to your true nature. This is non-dual stage, also known as enlightenment. At this point, I think it would be helpful to clarify a couple of common misconceptions about how spiritual development works. So, clarifying common misconception number 1. The process of spiritual development has nothing to do with mystical experiences. Having a mystical experience does not mean you are waking up. Mystical experiences are amazing and wonderful, but they don't help you wake up. They are part of the dream. You can use them to help you wake up, but you can really use absolutely anything to help you wake up. You just have to investigate it far enough. And if you're wanting to wake up, then pursuing mystical experiences will most likely be counterproductive because they are very compelling reasons to stay in the dream. If you want more details about this, I recommend checking out the video titled Previews, Peak and Mystical Experiences, Ego Death, Awakening, and Enlightenment. I'll link directly to it below. Clarifying common misconception number 2. Entheogens, i.e. psychedelics, also don't directly help you wake up. The best they can do is give you a preview of what's coming up in your spiritual development so you know which direction to go. But doing more entheogens won't actually help you progress in spiritual development. You have to do the work yourself. So what is an effective method to progress in spiritual development? There are many effective methods. Most of the great traditions of the world have at least a few accurate recommendations. The problem being, of course, A, that they also often contain a lot of stuff that's useless or even counterproductive for spiritual development, and it can be difficult to tell the difference. And B, almost all of them come exclusively from the context of a specific stage of consciousness, usually blue stage or at most orange stage, which can feel very jarring and confusing to interact with if you're in a different stage of consciousness. A couple of very direct methods that may feel more accessible include an intentional spiritual autolysis practice and/or asking your inner guidance for help. I also mentioned both of these methods in my How to Progress in Consciousness Part 2 video, and you might find it helpful to give that video a watch as well. Asking your inner guidance for help relies on your connection to your higher self or a trusted inner contact to guide you. Intentional spiritual autolysis is a contemplative method that relies on your conscious mind. It's an intellectual approach. You might very reasonably wonder how you could use your conscious mind, which is part of the dream, to help you wake up. But it does work. As an analogy, you can think of how in a regular dream, if your dream self is desperate enough to solve or get out of its current conundrum, it might actually wake you up. Upon waking, you probably realize that the conundrum was complete fiction, but it did the trick. You're now awake. Same thing with using your conscious mind to help you spiritually awaken. The desire to spiritually awaken is itself part of the dream. It's not real. The part of you that desires enlightenment isn't real. But if you want it badly enough, it can do the trick and wake you up. I'll include direct links to both the spiritual autolysis video and the how to access your inner guidance video in the description. That's it for this video. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments, and I look forward to next time.